Hello and welcome, listener. We're going to start this episode off just a little bit differently for our intro music. We wanted to take a little bit of time to say a few words about the passing of David Kohman. A couple of us knew him, and as always, for a community as small and tight knit as ours, losing one of our own, and especially put on events for this community, has been a big blow to us. So we want to make sure that we open up the floor for any of us to say a couple words if we had any to say before we get going with the show.
Yeah, me and my wife knew him pretty personally. We hung out with him pretty often, and he's definitely going to be missed. It's going to be a huge blow, especially here in North Texas and to the Adepticon community. He had stepped in and run Adepticon and had planned to again this year. So hopefully we'll be able to, a lot of us here in North Texas will be able to step up and fill his shoes, but they're big shoes to fill. We're going to do our best.
Yeah, I know that Glenn and I were looking forward to working with the North Texas event series. Dave was a good guy. Always a smiling face when you'd come to an event.
Right. Very, very passionate about everything he did. He did it all to the nine.
Yeah, he was definitely the personification of never half-ass one thing, or never ever half-ass two things, full-ass one thing. It was very much that.
I talked to him a couple times, but only on Facebook, sadly. I never got to interact with him personally. But every time I talked to him, you could just tell how much he loved Heresy and loved the community and loved what he did. It's just shocking, and man, this sucks.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add, but yeah, it ran events next to him, kind of correspondingly at Adepticon last year. Got to know him in person there. Unfortunately, he had booked so much time to run the event, so he didn't get to go out to dinner or anything, get to know him better, and he was planning on that this year, which I was really looking forward to. So, had lots of meetings with him and talked, hobby chats. Great guy, great for the community. Will be missed. I was really shocked when I heard about it.
Yeah, it was extremely sudden. My wife and I are looking to put together some sort of benefit in his honor for his family, so we'll forward that information when that gets.
I'd also like to call attention to the fact that Dan highlighted we were fortunate enough to actually have had David on the show this year for, I believe, the release of the Mechanicum Codex I was talking about. So
yeah,
he was.
He was known as the night guy. He had like 40 nights. That's what his thing was. He was always into it and always looking for events to play him in, and which is kind of what got him started hosting events, because people were always poo-pooing nights. He wanted to be the force for change in that. Can't blame him.
We here understand there's probably more that can be said, and by more people are able to get on the show tonight. But in light of that, both owing to what are obviously stresses of the holiday and stresses losing someone so important to so many, we do take the time to say again, as ever, make sure you stay accountable to your buddies. If you or someone that is hurting, please make a reach out to them, keep each other.
Yeah, and it wasn't a keep this, but it wasn't like a self thing. It was a health related. So
Yeah, medical.
Yeah.
But still, make sure you always count what time you have with your buddies as precious.
Absolutely.
It's one of the big things about this community is that we don't get a chance to see one another all that often. And I mean, most of us are middle-aged or older. We're all tied up with lives, work, careers, etc. And so when we do get a chance to get together, it's always a wonderful thing. And that's one thing that all of us need to make certain we do is checking in on people we don't get to see every day, because everybody's got their own stuff going on, and some of us have medical problems.
Yeah, some of us aren't as healthy as we used to be.
That would be me.
Yeah, same. That's why I missed Lucas's event this week that we'll cover in the show.
Yeah, to that point, one takeaway I would say is the other thing. It doesn't matter how old you are. You're always getting older. It's always harder to take care of yourself. Do what you can to take care of yourself. It makes a difference. I've lost 20 pounds this year and probably got another 25 to go, and to where I need to be. And it's as I get more into my 50s, it gets harder and harder to do. So yeah.
We only got 3 weeks left, so you better get on it.
No, that's for next summer. I gotta lose the rest. So, but yeah.
And with that said, for lack of a better term, our regularly scheduled program. Thank you, listeners, for joining us. My name is Jacob, and this episode I'm joined by
Duncan,
Jack,
John,
Jamie,
And Lucas.
and we are glad to have you with us. It's been quite a while between shows here, so it's definitely nice to be able to hear from everybody. We've got a lot to talk about this show, and that typically starts with hobby progress. What has everybody been up to?
So I think last time I was just about to leave for New York. I didn't get a lot of painting done while I was in New York, obviously, but I got to see St. Patrick's Cathedral and a bunch of other sites in New York City. Picked up a Titanicus scale Statue of Liberty to use for some terrain later. And then I ordered an entire case of camo sand Rust-Oleum spray paint and started going to town on all the stuff that I've been building. So I got the 2 guac bowl refineries painted. I got all of the ash waste platforms painted and the walkways spray painted on one side silver, on the other side camo sand. I got, a long time ago, I bought these TT Combat Sump Walkers. They're like little fighting platforms. I got those primed to go with everything. I got some guardrails primed to go with everything. The orc buildings, the last 3, I finally got washed, so now everything needs to get sealed, and then I can move on to heavier weathering with rust and things like that, using the rust I mixed up on our first episode using nails and alcohol, and then built all the support pillars because the ash waste terrain is very modular. You can plug support pillars into pretty much anything, and I got all those primed together so they can be washed. I built 2 sets of Prometheum pipes to kind of build some scatter terrain for the table. And then I also got a set of some more TT Combat terrain. I got they call it a fortified tower. To me, I put a bunch of control screens on top of it, so it looks like more like a control or conning tower from all my landing pads. I also got what looks like a big ground-built radar installation. It's this huge, like that one that was in James Bond that they used for SETI for a while. I think it was out in Brazil or something like that. For
Puerto Rico.
Yeah, there you go, Puerto Rico. That big old satellite dish. I've got a set of that to build next, and then some like AC vents and things like that that go on top of buildings that I'm gonna scratch build later. And then finally, off of eBay, I've been buying a bunch of 130 millimeter round bases to use for the ash waste building bases. So the ash waste buildings can fairly top heavy, so it's just little spindly legs, and then you get this big old building on top of it. And there's a guy on eBay. I'm gonna go ahead and shout him out. So it's been really nice and nice enough to custom cut me bases recently for the double wide building. His name is Midgarth Games, all one word, on eBay. I talked with him and told him what I needed was a 130 millimeter round base, but you take the exact high point and extend it an extra 70 millimeters to make bases for the double wide buildings for Necromunda. And I got him to cut me 5 of those for about $20. So that was to get those cut for me so I can start building the bigger bases. Bigger based buildings for Necromunda, and moving into the final stage of building everything. Finally move on with these tables. It looks like with everything all together built, I'm probably going to end up with almost 3 tables.
Hey, for those bases, are those beveled edges or are they just straight cut?
They're straight, and they take super glue really well. I mean, MDF usually does, but
Yeah.
I've been amazed at how well this stuff dries really on it.
I use a lot of bases that are straight cut, but I would prefer to have them beveled if I could find a place that was doing them cheaply.
Yeah,
but
I'm the
it's not.
same. Terrain, it's not that important. That's the way I see it.
Much harder to create a bevel edge base MDF than it's straight because
Yeah, like a router.
Or a post process sanding setup. Yeah, for sure. Cool.
Other than that, this week Lucas had an event that sadly been a while ago. In 2010, I slipped. I was carrying some Warhammer stuff to my car, and instead of falling like a normal person, my brain decided, hey, if you're carrying this crap that you painted for someone, you don't want to repaint it. So when I fell, I decided to twist my back and landed on my elbow, which ended up breaking my elbow and ruining a lot of my back. I recommend that if you are falling, your body knows what to do. You're not smarter than your reflexes. Try not to fall like I did because you'll end up screwing up your back for the rest of your life. But last Friday, I went in and had all of the nerve endings along the right side of my spine burned out to see if that'll help me some. And so far, it seems to be doing pretty well. Down on some of the medication I've been taking, but because of that, I missed the event that Lucas will be talking about later. It sounds like it was. That is everything that I have done hobby-wise this week. I will pass it on to Dan.
All right. So I been inspired by John, so I started working on terrain. So I've got 2 of the, I think it's Sector Imperialis. It's the building that came with the first 2 night box when they put that out. I got a couple of those, and then I've got the sprues from the Necromunda set, but that came in the second 2 night box. I went ahead at prize support at Michigan GT. So I started building that plastic terrain up. I've right now basically got 3 tables, and I'm trying to get 2 more done by Adepticon plus a Zone Metalis table. I've got the printer printing up a big giant vehicle. It's Dragon's Rest. I think it's Scarab Heavy Crawler or something they call it. And there's a trailer to it that I'm going to add to my alien invasion terrain. I'm going to do it like they captured an alien creature and then it busted out and put some dead dudes drowned in the bottom. And um then let's see. So purchases, when they put out all the Battle Force box, this is maybe previewing some of the purchase stuff, but when they put out all the Battle Force boxes, they put out some 40K boxes, and one of them was this Imperial Knight Chainbreaker lance or something they call it, and it's 4 armigers and the Canis Rex Knight, I think it is, that comes with the little guy in it. It was like $210, and if you price that out, I think it's $340 for all of it without it. So I have a couple knights already, so I didn't have any armigers. So with the new rules, that gives me 3 knights and 2 sets of armigers. So really, for what I want for a knight list, I want to buy one more. I want to buy a lancer, and I'll need 2 more sets of armigers, and then I'll have a knight list I can play. So I bought that. And then the other thing I did, and this goes along with some stuff we've talked about in the past, and I've found myself not painting as much as I want to. And like everybody, you know, I want to spend time with my family, watch TV, do a lot of stuff. And so my hobby table was way over the side. I couldn't see the TV. It was further away from where the family is. So I realized with just a little bit of work, I could rearrange my basement and make my hobby table a lot closer and where I can sit and see my big TV. I'll let the family watch television when I can come over and paint instead of watching TV and sitting on the couch. So I went through today. Of course, I like ripped a bunch of the wires out of my Octopi setup, so I had to redo my printer. But I completely redid my hobby space with the exception of my scale 75 paint rack, or one of my main paint racks is now not right next to me. I've got to take all the paints off of that and rehang it closer where I'm sitting. But I've now got my paint set up in a much more convenient place where I will sit and paint more often. I'm more likely to sit and paint more often. So a little bit of work there, but I think in the long run, it's going to be a really good move for making sure I get a lot more stuff done, rather than just sitting like a lazy bum in front of the television. And I think that's it for the week. So with that, I think we'll move on to Duncan. How are we doing, Duncan? What'd you do this week?
Well, I worked a lot, and then I did stuff for Secret Santa and for work, and then I did some more work and side of work. But other than that, I've built a Contemptor with 1 arm so far. This is all since the last episode. I've built 2 World Eater Chaplains, a new Chaplain for my Sons of Horus, a new Apothecary for my Sons of Horus, and 2 more of the Chieftains for my Sons of Horus. The Apothecary and Chaplain for the Sons of Horus are going to be going with some Jump Reavers, who I've been working on. I have not finished. They're literally just legs sitting right now. But that's about all I've got done. It's not a lot.
Which Contemptor is it? The new kit or?
No, it's a resin World Eaters Contemptor.
Okay.
Because I have 3 of those sitting around waiting to get done, and I'm slowly but surely working on my World Eaters a bit. Haven't got any paint on the new guys yet, but I will eventually. I'm just kind of trying to finish up getting the stuff done for the Sons of Horus first, and then I will work on these guys more. Let me see here. I think I will pass it on to Jacob. Jacob, what have you done?
I have unfortunately discovered that the Indie Storm GT has collapsed on us. To say that this was unexpected would be a lie. They have tried for a couple of years to get this together and they didn't successfully pull it off, and now the organization that was attempting to run it is no more and has that being said, we are currently still on track for 3,000 points, 2 rounds. I think we're looking to start dice rolling, if I'm right, around 10 o'clock on February 11th at the Battle Barn. with the intention to do prize support raffle by 7 p.m. And that way we do have enough time that there can be a third round for those people who want to be there. But we're hoping that by moving our target so that we start a first round later and run just 2 rounds kind of open, that we can get a better event with better turnout from out of state folks. We're confident it's probably not going to be level turnout, which is unfortunate, but again, just trying to roll with the punch and make the best of it. So that is going to be the narrative kickoff for subsector Epsilon. We again still encourage players to bring an extra model, ship, token, whatever you use to represent your army on the map, so that we can make sure that we track your gains and losses for your faction over time. I think we are looking at, as a result, because the barn has always been very cooperative with us for hosting events, we think we're looking at about a $20 entry fee. And if that event is not posted by the time this episode goes live, it should be posted. Again, this is going to be fully painted required. This is going to be 3,000 points, 2 rounds or more, but 2 rounds targeted 10 till 7 on February 11th. So my hobby time has been going to trying to figure out what we were and are doing to kind of scramble and relocate place for that. As well as I have been spending more than a little bit of time getting to brew up some Alpha Legion lists. I thought I was kind of done with the Legion, but we got an exemplary battle that we will talk about a little bit later in the show that brought a new unit into Alpha Legion that surprisingly really re-energized my interest in that legion. I don't know that they are going to be an army that I will do right away. And in fact, if you put a gun to my head, I would probably bet that I would still do Raven Guard before returning to Alpha Legion and trying to get a second edition army or whatever we're calling this current round on the table. But yeah, it's nice to feel encouraged about writing lists for that army again, and that's something that I hadn't really had since the current round of books and the new edition dropped. Likewise, there's been a lot over the last few days of combing over the new FAQ and talking with related groups about what it means, what it does mean, what it doesn't mean, and that's going to be another big talking point in the show. So, that having been done, I'm going to pass it to Jack.
Howdy, all. Yeah, brain fried here. I've started working on another Praetor for my Ultramarines because 75 is not enough. This one has a hammer, so you can tell he's way different than any of the other ones with hammers. I'm using the new Forge-rolled Praetor body for his base. So excited about that. And I just been slowly chipping away on stuff. Nothing major. Just a little bit working on this. Whatever fancy thing that tickles me is what I've been working on. So it's not showing me who else is on here right now. So I'm going to pass it off to whoever wants to go next.
I can go. It's Jamie. So I have been working on my Land Raiders that I got. I guess maybe it was the last show, maybe 2 shows ago, where I bought 3 of the new plastic Land Raiders. So I've gradually been going through working on those. And one of the reasons it's kind of been a little slow is that my I've been teaching my son how to use an airbrush. So he's been helping me paint with them. And so it's slow going with that because we want to try and take our time and get it right. And besides that, I've kind of been rearranging my office a little bit. I'm putting a computer over by my actual paint table. And then that, and we've had a lot of family issues going on recently that have kind of kept me away from being able to do much other than parenting. So with that, I think the only person that has not gone yet is it Lucas?
Yep, that's me. I really haven't been doing a whole lot that was Horus Heresy related necessarily. I have been running the printer nonstop as I've been printing Battlefleet Heresy stuff. We're kind of thinking about maybe trying to do something for that locally. So I got a little like 1,000-point starter fleet printed up and mounted on their base and started painting. And then I printed entirely too many ships. That's pretty much it, though. I haven't really bought anything. I've been good about that.
Those
So
ships are looking really nice. I saw you posted up pictures of those.
thank you. They came out really good. That new 8K printer is pretty.
What brand 8K did you buy, sir?
I have a Elegoo Saturn 8.
Nice.
So that's
Right.
a little bit different than the Saturn 2. The Saturn 2 a bit more expensive and a little bit taller, has a little more Z height. But other than that, that's pretty much it for me.
All right, with hobby progress behind us, I think ultimately releases have been pretty quiet since the show. I know the Scorpius Whirlwind has come out in plastic finally. Dan did already kind of mention the Knights and their bundle that's available for those who are curious about that army list. But past that, I think we've seen the Thousand Suns heads and the Salamanders heads. Anybody want to start us off with strong opinions on those?
The Salamander shoulder pads are fantastic.
I think the heads are probably definitely leaning towards the good category. They look a little bit like the older Sons of Horus heads, but a little more Draco-y.
Yeah, a little bit Sons of Horus, a little bit Salamanders, because you do have those fire details. And I almost detailed them to someone as if Mark III and Mark VI had a baby. It's like someone said, how do we make brewery machines out of Mark VI? I'm also with you. I think easily my favorite part of the Salam announcement shoulder pads, because they are visually distinct from every Salamander shoulder pad. It's not just oh hey, here's the same shoulder pads they used to have in their release.
Yeah, we also got pre-orders up for Space Marine video game 2, which has a 2023 Nebulous release date, but comes with a Primaris statue if you buy the fancy edition.
Yeah, and it's Captain Titus versus the Tyranids this time.
Yeah, and they dropped a couple different preview videos this week into that, and it looks like it's going to have some, if nothing else, I love 40K games because they always make sure that the guys that are working on the games stay really close to the GW terrain stuff, so it's always really good places to get inspiration for builds and stuff like that.
Right, that's been one of the best things about Darktide is like looking at the environment.
Oh my god, yeah, Darktide has
very cool.
Someone has been finding like the old Necromunda sprues on there, and so yeah, they go.
Yeah, just to touch on it, the Thousand Suns heads, those certainly exist. I am whelmed about those. The shoulders I think are nice. The little bevel that they put at the top of the ring looks relatively appealing. But yeah, kinda just like he put out the Ultramarines heads, and so we already had the CAD mocked up for.
My personal opinion of the Thousand Suns heads and the Salamanders heads are, well, at least they're not Space Wolf heads.
Mr. Lemmy Winks?
I would put them one notch better than that. I would say these are acceptable.
They're above Space Wolf, but not. I wouldn't put them mid tier. Let's put it that way.
So I will say that our resident Salamander player was impressed and thought they were really nice. So
yes, Jake loved them.
Yeah,
Jake loved them.
Jake Bussey of Covenant of Fire fame,
and our co-host that's come on a couple times to announce events, Michael, liked them as well.
Yeah, it's
of course.
I'm glad other people than me like them.
I mean, that's it appeals to everybody. Please
don't say that.
Who want to play them are good, and the people who don't. And then there's crap, and they aren't in the crap category for sure. I think some people like them, some people don't, but most stuff is going to fall in that category, right? I think.
Yeah, too much stuff falls in that category, especially with these heads that they keep releasing on a very, very slow trickle.
Yeah, they really should have had them all ready to go when the box. I mean, the slow trickle.
Yeah.
It's just I don't get it. I mean, like think about how long we've knew about the box before it had come out, and like it's like what are y'all doing?
Demons players are rolling in their graves because Liber Demonica still doesn't even have an inclination to come out.
Right.
Militia don't either. I mean, we're 7 months from release if we want to be technical, and I still can't play my militia.
No, are we at that point in this podcast?
We are.
I don't think we're quite there yet.
7 months? Yeah.
So before we go too far into that, let's swerve in the positive direction, and let's talk about the exemplary battle that we got. We got the adherents for salamanders, and we got the Efreet disruption cadre for Alpha Legion.
And the most important part of it is we got a new battle.
We did, and we found out that we have one last one on the way, which I think is going to be, what is it, Blood Angels and Iron Hands, who are the last ones up? I think they're the only ones who haven't received exemplary battle unit thus far.
I don't know, honestly. I'm
How
hoping.
are they going to shove those in?
I don't know that they should, but they could put both of those in the same one if they felt like there was a traitor legion that was served against them. But I really don't know who or what you put out there from a lore standpoint that hasn't been covered.
Night Lords.
They can have
I know they got the Atramentar, but the only way I'm seeing them being able to do it would be something regarding the Thousand Worlds where Sanguinius and everybody met there on McCrag, and then some of the Shattered Legion showed up. That's the only way I could think they could do something.
It's certainly possible to go that route. Regardless, given that the pace of these has steadily declined since the release of the new edition, it'd be difficult to place a bet.
It would be.
Does somebody want to do a rundown of the Salamander Legion unit? I know we don't have a Salamander player here. I've got a buddy in my play group played them out a little bit, so I can kind of repeat some of his opinions on them, but...
I vote Dan. Because he's painting right now, and it makes me laugh.
I'll spare Dan. So the Salamander. Go ahead. Do you want to? Yeah,
I've got it open. So yeah, every model comes with a Dragon's Breath Combi Flamer. It's a 4-man and 1 sergeant unit for 140 points. You can add 5 more Marines for 20 points apiece. War gear, you get a Dragon's Breath Combi Flamer, bolt pistol, chain sword, frag and crack grenade. They're relentless, which is nice. Support squad, they can buy a Rhino or Proteus Land Raider as dedicated transports. Every 5 models, one may exchange their combi flamer for a heavy flamer. The sergeant can take artificer armor. The sergeant can also take a power weapon, a power fist, or a thunder hammer, and belt the ball.
They're also all 2-wound models.
Yeah, being 2-wound, but lacking the line subtype.
And lacking a weapon skill or ballistic skill upgrade.
Yeah, well that's not surprising that they're a troop, but...
One of their special rules lets them buff their weapons.
Yeah, so these guys are set during the Awakening Fire point of the timeline where, Xiphus Jur is kind of leading the Legion because Vulcan is Vulcan is on the receiving end of whatever nonsense is going on in the Heresy past Istaban.
Yes, where he's being chewed up by everybody's favorite Conrad.
Yep. So the unit may, I believe it's as a reaction, basically.
It says at the start of any assault phase, they can take a leadership check on 7, where they gain Feel No Pain 6+, and improve their weapon skill to 5.
Yeah.
The duration of that assault phase.
Yep.
Meaning theirs or their opponents.
But they can do it every turn.
You're going to have to test regularly, and considering you've only got that 60% chance of passing, not counting fear getting involved, I think they would ignore fear technically because it gives them a fixed value they test on.
Yep.
Interesting consider.
And let's be honest, with all those flamers, you're not really going to expect them to be in a lot of combats very often.
Yeah, I mean Terminators can kind of bowling ball into them, but it's certainly not ideal. And the fact that they're 2 attacks base plus dual armed with a chainsword for shred, that's a lot. I pointed out that these guys are remarkably similar to Pyroclasts, and I was like, why would you not just take Pyroclasts? And my buddy who's tried them out says that for the narrative he's wanting to push to play, which is that Vulcan is gone, and that he is, at least for some of his lists for events, looking to play Awakening Fire. He's really excited to be able to put these guys on the table instead of Pyroclast, put them in a less contested troop swap, staple an apothecary to them, and then leave his fire drakes as a bodyguard or Zyphoster or similar or H. And he's gotten good use out of them. He's highlighted that combi weapons also this edition have gone the quote-unquote 40k route, and you can fire both halves of the combi.
Yep.
And
He calls it out in the rules for these guys specifically, if nothing else.
it says it's a minor combi weapon as well, so that means the flamer end of times.
Yep.
And the Dragon's Breath Flamer is a Strength 5, A4, and reacts with D6 auto hits, and it's just pretty keep in mind that means if you fire on this unit and you are within template range of this unit,
You're going to get a lot of fire.
they get to return fire with that, and it's a bunch.
You actually only have to be within H's of one single model for the entire unit return firewall of you.
Right, yeah, because we went back to some of those quote-unquote 5th edition style abstractions.
And they can actually choose to Wall of Death you anytime they would be forced to snap shoot. I don't know if there's any where that would occur, but
I don't know.
FYI. Maybe they could be like, what is it, Shock Pulsed?
Shock Pulse is just concussive, and I
Well,
think that's a weapon skill and initiative penalty now. But I get what you're saying. If that equivalent rule, like a stasis grenade equivalent rule or something, ever happened. Yep.
And the Wall of Death is actually much better against like a Dreadnought, single model.
Oh, it's hugely terrifying in those cases. Sure, you're only what you are already on. No. Doesn't it say that when you roll for random hits, you can only roll up to a maximum number on them equal to the number of enemy models in the unit?
I don't
have any armies that have flamers, so I don't know.
Yeah. That might be something to keep in mind before you try to pull one of those tricks. Research and execute at your own peril.
Still, it's a very flavorful unit, a very interesting unit, and I actually kind of like it a lot. So
Yeah, I really like it. I think it's one of the better exemplary battles units. I don't know how strong it is.
yeah, I mean that's the thing. Rule of cool is what matters more than anything else, and this definitely fits the rule of cool.
I would put these guys right there with, the Chieftains for Sons of Horus, which is the intersection of playable, I'm not calling them broken, overtuned, anything like that, fully playable and wholly interesting.
Agreed.
And that's a really nice place to see. On the subject of interesting and playable...
Just one second.
Uh-huh.
Wall of Death, no, does not have a maximum.
Interesting. I wonder if that...
I mean, we've had 40 different iterations of Wall of Deaths.
Yep. Certainly possible.
Knowing the current edition and the way it gets written, we'll probably have 3 or 4 more before this edition's over.
Yeah, probably just change it in FAQ.
Yeah. Reset the clock. We did get the Alpha Legion Ifrit squad. These are something that a lot of people in the Alpha Legion saw coming very early. These are the guys who, if I'm correct, pal around very regularly at Omegon's command or with Omegon, or Omegon has masqueraded as a member of their number from time to time. And so that they were missing as kind of a companion unit to headhunters was a pretty clear indicator of exemplary battles. I'll also tip that someone who we all know who may have won a painting award at Adepticon last year may or may not be snagging some more Dathan to convert these guys for I think his Adepticon army this year. And I've seen his conversions so far, and they are sick. Cannot wait to see what it is once he's painted up, because he's really been pushing his Alpha Legion paint spot over the last year, really trying to push for kind of the powder with some very purple shadows to a lot of potential for how that army turns out. We digress, though. The Ifrit cadre starts at 145 points for an elite's choice, 5 models, 4 dudes, and a sergeant. Move 7, ballistics 5, 2 wounds. They picked up 2 wounds and the headhunters didn't. Super cool. 2 attacks base. They have Bane Strike shotguns, which we'll get into in a second. Bolt pistols. They have a Hydra's Whale Disruption. Fragging crack grenades. Shroud bombs. Love me some Shroud bombs, especially if people in your playgroup are not playing Tech Marines with Cognos Signums. Shroud bombs are really, really spicy. They're a power armor unit. They are the skirmish unit type, and they have infiltrate. They can pick up to 5 extra models. Each model may replace their shotgun for a Nemesis bolter. Please don't do this, but your mileage may vary. The entire unit may take melt-a-bombs at points per model or power daggers at points flat. It was a very interesting that they should write that. And the sergeant may take a power weapon. For those of you who are not aware, or who didn't dig super deep into the Alpha Legion rules, power daggers were one of the biggest changes that last edition. They were a 5-point upgrade that a character model could buy for a specialist. Super, super cool that you could just suddenly cheat yourself dual armed, even on like sergeants and stuff. So like your Harrower sergeant for Alpha Legion for Lernaean squads, where the sergeant already had 3 attacks base, suddenly you could kick him to 4 attacks. By the time he got dual armed, you could have him out there with a chain fist, and you could really make a mess. That's gone now. What they do now, they are a standard close combat weapon, so buying them will dual arm this squad. They're strength 3, they are breaching 5+, and sudden strike 1. So if you charge with them, you get the kick to initiative 5, and even though you are only strength 3, all of your wounds against standard Marine targets, so anybody who's tough 5, it's going to be resolved at AP2. Very, very potent in certain cases, including this, where you can kind of take them off.
Yep. It's definitely going to be a rude awakening for a squad of, say, Terminators if you run these guys and just charge them into them if you need to.
Yeah, it's difficult against Terminators because they do have 2 wounds, but it can surprise someone if you're able to like bait a charge that fails, especially because of your Alpha Legion rule. But yeah, definitely some opportunities here to be. The Hydra's Whale is a 12-inch range weapon, assault 1 with the Hydra's Whale rule. A unit that suffers 1 or more hits from this weapon, keep in mind the squad is ballistics 5, takes -1 leadership. The squad can only ever be affected by a single Hydra's Whale a turn, and it also turns off any war gear that includes augury or vox.
Until your next turn. Not their turn, your turn.
Yep. So it won't turn off a Cognos Signum. Womp womp. But the fact that you can turn off a augury array, or a Nuncio Vox, so Nuncio Vox being the thing that keeps your leadership up when it's night fight out, sorry about you. The augury scanner, that gives you free interceptor, nope, let's turn that off too. Really, really interesting. One of the most unique pieces they've put these documents, I believe.
Well, I couldn't ever turn off the augury's interceptor because the interceptor in this turn would have happened already, and then it turns off at the start of your next turn.
Oh, that's a good
which
point.
Is before your interceptor.
Yep.
Yep.
That was what a lot of people were upset about, that it doesn't for that. But
yeah, it will
works
get
for
the
stuff.
ballistic skill twist for night fight, but and keep in mind you may not use a Hydra's Whale during a reaction. Relatively important. The other thing that they get is the Bane Strike shotgun. So the normal Bane Strike bolter that the Headhunters get, twin-linked, strike 5, AP4, 18-inch rapid fire, breaching 6+. The Bane Strike shotgun, on the other hand, 12-inch range, strength 4, AP5, assault 2, shred, breaching 6+, concussive 1. So you have one unit apply Hydra's Whale, you have, or one model applies that, you have the rest of the unit open up with the Bane Strike shotguns, and if you, say, put a Vigilator with this unit who had a Nemesis Bolter, you could very quickly get a unit to either get pinned, you could get a unit that suddenly fails their check for concussive because they're taking multiple leadership debuffs, both from losing their sergeant, possibly night fight, and then again the Hydra's Whale. And because concussive drops the enemy's weapon skill and initiative, then you can follow up, because these shotguns are assault 2, you can follow up with a power dagger charge where your 2 attacks base, 3 for dual armed, 4 on the charge. You'll effectively be up a weapon skill, which means you hit on 3s, they hit you on 5s, mop up extremely potent unit, especially if you bring a Vigilator along for the run.
Yeah, I'm actually really impressed by this unit. I think they're you've got to have a lot of moving parts together to work to get them where you want them to be. But dang, they're nice.
The idea that I have toyed with is taking them either with a Vigilator or with a recon squad behind to support them, because that squad could pick the sergeant. And then, or if you like build this again as part of a larger list of moving parts, by the time you get a Vigilator in here to pick somebody, you say, I don't know, let's attach maybe Exodus to a Headhunter squad because he's allowed to ride with them. Exodus can do the same thing for the Headhunters that the Vigilator's doing here of picking out the HQ choice. You then send that unit charging in where the daggers can kind of try to clean up whatever was left over. Really, really leaves you open to... I shouldn't say leaves you open, opens the door to playstyles that to me read like Salamanders, which is get in close, shoot some real nasty stuff, and then charge in to clean up whatever doesn't get shot. And
Yeah,
those
I
shotguns
wish
are...
they could. I really wish they could be joined by a Saboteur.
Yeah, I agree. I would like to see the Saboteur able to join them, but given that they have not made any Legion kind of properly intersect with their exemplary battle units, I'm not surprised it's not eligible. But it's not really the end of the world, given that a Vigilator, I don't think they get the skirmish unit type, so you will lose that benefit for, what is it, +1 cover save. But the Vigilator will pick up Infiltrate and Scout. And really, outside of the fact that Headhunters get that precision shot 4+, and can bring a multi-melta to ride around with them, this squad, I believe, actually causes more damage because you have a lower strength paired with Shred to try to fish for more AP2, AP3 equivalent wounds.
Right, like a 4 rerolling is better than 3 by a
Bingo.
little.
Yep. Especially once you get that over the top up.
Right.
Yep.
And Scout now lets you scout up to 9 inches away from your opponent. So you can actually start in range with the Hydras. That would preclude you from charge. You could.
Yeah, losing charge is hardly the worst price that these guys could have to pay relative to what I feel like their actual potent tabletop is.
Yeah, I'm definitely recommending to Corin that he gets at least one of these just to have fun, for fun's sake.
Yep. So this is what I've really been toying with lately, is seeing like how much threat can I get on the table. Do I want to take an for like rewards of treason? If I can find a way to like cheat infiltrate onto my stolen unit, do I want to take Pyroclast? Do I want to take Suzerains? But I really want something that's designed to kind of like get in there close and support a team of Headhunters. And
Yep, I definitely see that.
super,
So what else have we got
super
coming up?
appealing in a way that I didn't expect. Speaking of, what do we have coming up and super, super exciting that I did not expect? We got an FAQ. We got an
Yeah.
FAQ of our FAQ. Okay. If you guys tuned in regularly, you know that we were not wildly impressed with the first round FAQ. I don't know that I am still wildly impressed with the FAQ, but what we got with these latest FAQs moves the needle in a way that I didn't anticipate it. So let's start with the big one up front, which is nailed down explicitly how we want return fire to function. I am overjoyed that we have this now, black and white. Here's how we thought this was going to work.
Honestly, this is almost a slow clap because GW has never done this.
Yeah.
This is like the most anal they have ever been about writing a rules, and it needed it.
Yeah, and
It's really
it's amazing. It's wonderful. I'm almost like I'm somewhere between like the slow clap or like the angry yet satisfied clap that the man seems to have in, what is it, Citizen Kane, the gif that I see shared around so often. Bravo. I'm stunned. I'm almost speechless. I didn't anticipate seeing this spelled out to the level it is. Cliff notes for you is that you do get to, if I'm correct, see how incoming damage is going to look, return fire, but you return fire as if you are at full strength. Oh no, it is before hit rolls are made. Okay,
Yeah.
so it is before hit rolls are made, and you return fire at full strength. I don't know if I like how this works, but the fact that they have spelled it out so explicitly leaves me with no other choice other than to remind players this is very clearly deliberate and intentional that they want it to work this way. And
Yeah,
if
I
you
absolutely hate it, but I appreciate that it's spelled out.
Yes, bingo. If it wasn't supposed to work this way, we can worry about that later. But the fact that they have defined we intend it to work this way, that's a better state than what we were before this FAQ. Other ones that stand out, we cleared up Shrouded. We cleared up Shrouded and how it intersects with the Fearless rule. Changes were made in the last FAQ that allowed Fearless units to claim Shrouded and or other damage mitigation based reactions. You cannot claim a reaction that modifies your armor save, cover save, or invulnerable save, which I think still leaves Thousand Suns out in the cold. But that's one of 18 legions, which is then like one of 25 armies or something. It's a very, very small quibble. Regardless, Shrouded, you can claim Shrouded as long as you yourself on a model-by-model basis do not have Fearless or are a Primarch. And by or are a Primarch, Primarchs are explicitly, in spite of being Fearless, allowed to claim Shrouded. So the rest of your Legion command squad can hit the deck and try to claim Shrouded to hold on for dear life when incoming fire hits, but the banner will not.
Yeah, he's going to sit there and take it.
Everybody else does. Again, whether or not you like how it does or doesn't work, it is a separate discussion that we can have, but it is now explicitly nailed down. And what's more, they fixed Magnus, they fixed, I think, the White Scar reaction, and they fixed Korax in here, and I am 110% for this. They fixed Korax's Legion reaction, because Korax is most likely, if he's not by himself, he's probably going to be joined to Dark Furies. Dark Furies can now use this to like get something resembling an invulnerable save in the shooting phase. Again, Night Vision will still turn it off, but it's a way better state than what the last FAQ left it. Hugely impressed.
Yep. Sounds good.
Next along,
I've got a few bits that I'm not really happy with, and that would be they didn't really talk or add anything all that much to the questions we have in the various actual Legion. That has been my concern there.
They didn't, but
I like the fix to the battlesmith.
Yes, we had to fix the damage from last FAQ before we could move into new FAQ. Battlesmith has now been cleared up that if you choose Battlesmith, you choose no other shooting. It does not supplant a shooting attack, it supplants your shooting attacks. I don't know if
a lot of Mechanicum stuff.
It makes Mechanicum sad, but it also clears up why they took firing protocols off Perturaba. This is an explicit choice. I don't know that I agree with it either, but again, when you put things in explicit wording, it's a whole lot easier for me to like figure out whether I want to keep playing the game if you've at least told me this is how we intend our game to play.
I'm not complaining about it at all. It actually makes sense.
And then in the Q&A section at the end of the document, there's some really important understandings to have about the hold the line reaction in the assault phase.
There's also one other thing, but yeah that was important.
You hit it before we do the hold the line.
They have the question about disembarking from an assault vehicle after its interplay from reserves. It causes more questions than it solves, because they tell you some rules such as strike assault right of war is not a thing. There's a drop pod assault right of war and a deep strike such thing as a deep strike assault right of war, or a flanking assault override this restriction, but nobody really knows what they're talking about.
Oh, I know what they're talking about. This breaks the Charybdis if you aren't playing orbital assault. Or that's the only thing that I can read it here. It's telling you at some level, the same way we've operated on a principle that specific overrides general, your right of war is more specific than the unit entry and the core rules telling you how deep strike and assault vehicle work, intersect, and otherwise overlap. So unless you are playing orbital assault, which is, again, what I've speculated since we've gotten these rules, orbital assault, they created some problems for themselves because they will let you deep strike a Charybdis and dive immediately headlong into close combat. I think that creates more balance problems than it solves. But again, to me, this identifies that they think it is deliberate and it is a conscious choice they are making, and that's what they are all in on.
I really think that drop pod, you said breaks the Charybdis, but I almost think that drop pods in general are, you're using the drop pod assault or they're not really worth bringing. It almost in this edition
I'm inclined to agree, but there were a number of people who speculated, especially after the Charybdis got deep strike back in the last FAQ, that they could just spike a one-off Charybdis into their list and have it work, and it doesn't.
Yeah.
Boo.
I like it, but at least it's clear.
Yes, and I do highlight Lucas's point that I do wish that they actually put the correct nouns in this answer rather than just being like, oh yeah, the thing that lets you take the drop pods, that's still to do it.
Well, so at the end of the Deep Strike Assaults, at the end of the Deep Strike Assault section on page 311 of the core rulebook, it says may shoot and assault as normal after they come in and everything. So is it saying they can get out of the Charybdis and assault in a deep strike assault or no?
In an orbital assault, right?
Well, there's no such thing as an orbital assault. So you gotta get the terminology correct.
Is it not called orbital assault?
I think it's called drop pod assault.
Yep.
Okay.
Sorry, I just to get it correct because they've gotten it in.
Sure. My understanding would be that because if you read assault vehicle, if I'm correct, assault vehicle says you can disembark and assault unless this unit has arrived from reserves. And that's why the right of war overrides. That is my understanding.
Yeah. It also, if you remember correctly, a long time ago when they were previewing the rules before everything dropped, they specifically said that you could first turn assault out of assault vehicles.
That's
for what it's worth, but
that's a little suspicious or maybe a little more suspect, given that Warhammer Community was also just like, oh yeah, you can totally return fire with the rocket system on a Scorpius Whirlwind.
That's fair.
Mm-hmm.
Or when they were talking about Titanicus Lancers that always had a 6+ even when fired on by strength 15 volcano cannons. Yeah, Warcom is the lower level of intern.
Yeah, you can't get your rule.
Yep.
So assault vehicle does specifically forbid you from assaulting unless when you arrive from reserve. So a guy in a jump pack can jump in and assault, but a guy in a Charybdis that's by itself cannot.
Correct.
But if the Charybdis is accompanied by other drop pods, it can.
Yes.
In a roundabout way.
Yes, in a roundabout way, absolutely. Yeah, that's whether or not that should be the way it is, that seems to be that they are moving towards more identifying that this is how they intended a couple choices to be.
Right. Whether it's any good or not, we don't know, but
Yep.
The right of war is called drop pod assault.
Okay, yeah, and they have it listed here as deep strike assault.
Correct.
Yep. Okay, as for hold the line is a reaction where you take a leadership test. You take a morale test. If you pass, the enemy charging you becomes disordered. In this document, they now clarify, if you fail that morale check, if you fail to hold the line, you fall back as normal.
Yep.
If you fall back in this way, and an enemy successfully charges you, you are automatically swept with no attempt to regroup.
Yep.
I like that there is some risk reward to the hold the line reaction, given how many things a disordered charge breaks. I think the only two rules that we could find that don't get turned off by a disordered charge are the World Eaters and Emperor's Children, and and Blood Angels as well. Those three do not get turned off by disordered charge, but so many other things,
including Hammer of Wrath.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Remember, if you don't charge in a straight line, you can't drop your shoulder into the guy at the end of it.
Yeah, or run them over with your jet bike.
Of course not. It's impossible. Again, whether or not this, I personally like this, but even if you don't, it's cool that they have highlighted we intend this to work.
I think that for the health of the game, my suggestion is to apply this that you have to take a morale check to return fires.
Oh
That's
my
like a whole.
gosh.
I would love
Be
that.
still my beating heart.
So
That-
if you're
I would
fearless,
love
you
that.
just automatically pass this check and don't have to do.
Yes.
Okay, that's dumb. But
Welcome to Fearless. Okay, we did also get, I did not super thoroughly comb through the Liber Imperialis and the Liber Mechanicum FAQs, but I know in the Legion FAQs, they made sure that the Saber could now buy 4 missiles at 5 points instead of 2 missiles at 5 points each. Looks like they got some cleanup on the Crimson Paladins for Blood Angels. They gave Breacher charges to Medusan Immortals. We're still not ready to talk about Medusan Immortals having bayonets as a unit option, nor are we ready to talk about whether or not suzerain shields grant dual arm, but we can give Medusan Immortals breach charges.
Well, they
Very
so
proud.
they desperately needed them.
Yes, they weren't breachers without them, though.
I mean, makes perfect sense.
So some of the changes on the Liber Imperium are kind of important. Like I'm looking here, so the Clade Calexis Assassin loses force from the Animus Speculum, which everyone was wondering how that worked at all because of the shooting gun. How could you force a gun because it's supposed to be close combat only? The Vanus Assassin lost independent character but gained the Panoply of Assassins, obviously, through its war gear. So technically it wasn't an assassin because it didn't have the Panoply of Assassins part. They just made sure it was added in there. The Rust can get turret-mounted Gravis las cannons now. The Tarantula got
whoa! There's the change to the turret-mounted Gravis las cannons actually is a nerf.
Yeah, then it goes away from 4 or something.
Yeah,
like
it used
that.
to have 2 Gravis las cannons, and now it only has 1.
Yeah,
and it's still the best.
But it's
Yeah.
free.
Yeah, it was always free, but it was 2
okay.
Gravis
before
las cannons. Now it's only.
Before you had 4 shots with that.
I had also heard that the Assassin's rule of, hey, if you kill a character, you get a bonus victory point. That's been FAQ'd, but yet none of the Assassins appear to actually have that rule, but we didn't address that in the document. The Astartes documents at least also clear up that if you are allocating units to receive special rules, independent characters are a separate unit from a unit they join for rules allocation. I had been budgeting and building Alpha Legion lists as if that was the case, but good to know that even if some people weren't, they've nailed that down. A Primarch's retinue, and that retinue dedicated transport now counts towards your Primarch/Lord of War allotment. And that brings up a more interesting follow-up question we will crack into here in just a moment. And then apparently we had to clear up some things about who is and isn't a psyker and what that does or doesn't mean for disciplines in the Thousand Sons army.
Were people asking that question?
I don't know that I ever saw it in a Thousand Sons group, but some of that could be that, like, I keep my head very low to the ground because I know that sometimes the more that you visit publicly trafficked online spaces, sometimes those gravitate more to the lowest common denominator of let's build the cheesiest looking thing we.
You might want to reread the wording of that part. It says, are the following Thousand Sons units treated as having gained the Psyker unit subtype through the Cult Arcana ability and are therefore not eligible to gain a psychic discipline unless they have another special rule or option which grants access to one?
Right. So the reason why this was important is that it's asking, can I for 15 points buy them a bonus psychic discipline, or otherwise, since they are psychers, do they innately get a psychic discipline? That's
exactly
my limited understanding of that. And again, this is here to say, no, Azek Armin and Magistus Ammon, both of those tell you what psychic powers they get. You don't get more.
Yeah, I really like that because it from what I understand and have read in a couple of different places on the internet, people have been arguing that they get what they get, plus they get an extra one that they can pick.
I guess I had never written a list believing that was the case, and that's why I say, like, this FAQ is important for some people, much like the how do independent characters count for allocating rules, but thankfully it doesn't appear to be significant to me personally.
No, I've seen people arguing a lot of strange things, but I kind of like the clarification on that one.
John, you were looking into some stuff in the Liber Imperialis. Are you still doing so? Do you need a little longer?
No, I'm good. There's some interesting. They added melted cutters, which was something that was missing, and then they've added some options to the Contemptor Achilles, so you can change out some of the minor weapons to be what the model came with, which is nice too. So, as far as that part of the FAQ goes, I like it.
Yeah, again, whether or not this is perfect, this is, as was said at one point, this will begin to make things right. We can keep this thing going and continue to see updates where we can actually clear up some things that we just kind of halfway through together in the FAQ. Continue.
Well, and they did address some things in exemplary battles and in the legacy PDFs, which gives us some hope that at some point they'll deal with some of the other issues with the legacy PDFs that we all have, like repointing a lot of things. So
Yeah,
they're not
more good than
ignoring.
bad,
They're not
for
just
sure.
ignoring them, right? That's the point.
I do have one thing I'd like to point out. We haven't really touched on the Solar Ox list.
we have not. Do you have something to say about it?
I do. A pretty large gaping hole in the Solar Ox list. There's no troops units.
No, that's what
What?
the panoply's for.
Yeah,
You have to build troops out of the thing. You like buy multiple units as one troops. It talks about that at the beginning of the Solar Ox.
yeah, but they don't actually include everything else. There's like no specific standalones. You're gonna buy like one batch of these dudes only.
Yeah,
That-
you can't. do
You have
that.
to buy like a
It's like-
company, basically.
Yeah.
It's like the way the Garden Codex worked in what, fourth.
It's a fifth or edition.
Yeah,
You'd have to buy like a troop squad and then a commander unit and then like a heavy weapon.
Yeah,
That would be like one troop.
yep. That's kind of the point of what I'm trying to get at. It includes a lot of the other stuff for it, but other than that, unless you're cross-referencing to the other list, you're not really gonna quite know what you're doing there or how to do it, if you know what I mean.
yeah. I mean, it's the same problem that sisters technically have, that you have to buy with sisters. Though, I mean, they're troops choices, but you can make an illegal list without even knowing it, unless you read the one's Oblivion and one's the other thing is where you have to take the characters that unlock the ability to take X number of other things.
In addition to the FAQs too, they also brought out the Solar Ox Legacy PDF, right? So
Yeah.
added Davenite Lodge Priest, Expeditionary Navigator, Carnodons, Terminite Drills back, Armored Support Tertio with the Thunder Siege Tank,
Yep.
Destroyer Tank Squadrons, Trojan
Stuff we've all been
really
wanting to
cool.
see.
Minotaur, Macarius, and then the various
Banes,
Blade,
blades.
Bane, Blade, Storm, Hammer, Blade, Hammer, Bane, something tanks.
They're all over.
Super heavy tanks, yeah.
Yeah,
All way overcosted.
Well, they reasonably priced the Macarius
Macarius.
tank, but
That
they
they
left out
did.
the Omega. I mean, I don't know if they're really reasonably priced. They're still probably too expensive, but they're half the price of the Astartes one.
Yeah, that for only -1 ballistic skill, you're saving 300 points.
Yeah,
Well, I mean,
that
that's
makes
a
it sound like a bargain.
It does.
I mean,
It's a lot of training they don't have to go through.
There's actually a lot of cool ways to give them +1 ballistic skill in that list, too. There's like a bunch of tanks that can take cognizance.
we have ground tracking radar.
Oh, I think it's really cool. I'm about it.
I'm just looking forward to seeing John and what he can come up with as a list.
I'm still waiting for militia, and if we don't get a militia book or it's crap, then I'm harder. But right now, I'm thinking that my next army after all these terrain is probably going to be sisters, because I looked at the list and I've been kind of dinking around with Lucas behind the scenes, and
It's so cool.
I have so many models. I don't even have to buy anything. I just need to buy more bronze paint, and I'll have an army.
You're not the only
Sisters list
person.
is so cool.
Yeah, you're not the only person I've heard that a lot of people are looking at.
I want them
Yeah.
jet bikes.
Mm-hmm.
So as we talk a little bit about Liber Imperialis, I did have a player in my area ask a question. Is there anything that explicitly states that you are limited to one allied detachment? And this led into then asking the question, does your Lord of War choice have to be from the same faction as your primary detachment? I ask all of this because he very much wanted to build a Scouring of Prospero, and he indicated that since Custodes and Sisters are now each an independent list, he was like, what do I do now? If I want to build this, am I just disallowed from it? Or do I take multiple allies?
Never taken one ally, so I could.
Yeah, same. I've never taken an ally.
And I haven't either, so I was just as lost as you, honestly, but that's something that I wanted to kind of bring up, dare I say, to kind of finish or round out our discussion, or in absence of that, to open up for maybe next week, if we do a little digging and do a little research, see if or what we end up thinking or feeling about it, as far as, are multiple allies permissible? Are multiple primary detachments permissible? Does your Lord of War, since it is now in a separate detachment, because your Primarch is actually part of your unit list, does your Lord of War have to be part of the same detachment, or will it just behave based on an ally's mate?
I was looking at this when you posted this up in our chat earlier in the week, and the wording is, as an example, the Crusade Force org chart consists of 3 separate detachments: the primary detachment, a Lords of War detachment, and an optional allied detachment. And they have everything blocked out, like, so your allied detachment can have 4 troops, 2 elites, right? But there's 1 allied detachment. The way I read that, I read it that you can have 3 detachments in an army. You can have your primary detachment, 1 Lord of War, 1 allied detachment.
So you can't have your primary and then 2 allies for a total of.
That's for the Crusade. The Crusade only has the 3 total.
That's what I'm saying, though. But he said a total of 3. But could you pick any of the 3 you wanted?
It's 3, the primary detachment, a Lords of War detachment, and an optional allied detachment. I mean, it very specifically says what the 3 are. But again, I'm not, I think that...
Interesting that it says that allies are optional, but Lords of War is not optional.
Yeah,
actually, Lords of War are optional.
It
does say that down in the graphic, but it doesn't say it in the text.
But not in the wording.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, as an event runner, I guess it almost leads to me wanting to get lists submitted and look at the point of it. If someone's bringing a bunch of allied detachments because they're trying to make the most evil, nasty beat stick list in the world, I would tend to say, no, that's dumb. What are you doing? You're just trying to get where you're going to make it no fun for the other players. If someone has a thematic reason and they've got an army that's going to be a normal, fun army to play, and it's a lore thing, and they aren't just taking the best of every option and every troop they can, I would tend to think that I would allow it, right? And so, that's my gut reaction to this, right? It's, why are you doing it, right? If you're doing it because you want to win everything, right, which is, not generally what we're about, I would tend to think no. If you want to do it because you got a cool list and a cool set of armies and lore behind it, and it's going to be fun for people to play and look cool on a table and be fun for your opponent, then I would tend to think I would allow it. But it requires some policing, and whether that's self-policing or event runner policing or what, that's really where I think it should fall. But I don't know.
As an event organizer, I don't disagree with you, but you get where I'm trying to also bring this conversation to help other play groups where people might be apprehensive about what they think somebody
for sure.
And I
like
get
the ultimate power list from Adepticon.
Right.
Because that was literally a War to Lore and 2 allies.
Yep. Nobody wants to see that again. Or at least I don't strongly believe that anybody who's on this show wants to see that.
No.
And that's why, I know the guy who brought this all up, who wants to play Scouring of Prosper. Dude's super cool, very invested in genuinely wanting to play Scouring of Prosper. But how does he go to another event, one that I'm not running, and tell somebody, hey man, I've got 2 allied detachments, without knowing if he's got a leg to stand on?
Well, there is one way to find out, and that's to get a lot of people emailing that FAQ email that GW has put out for this, and see if it'll go into the next FAQ.
And also to contact your TO of the event.
There's that.
I mean, like,
I agree. I think these are all wise courses of action.
I think if I were telling him what models to buy and how to build the list, I would build the list around no, and you get one allied attachment and you pick one, and that's the way you're going to build the list, and then build the rest of it out as an optional list that if it's an event or or you're playing with your buddies and they'll allow it, or you're actually playing a Prospero Scouring game or something, then you can pull it out and do it, because it fits the narrative. But I mean, if I was making model choices and purchases, I wouldn't count on it being generally accepted based on what we just read, and how it seems fairly clear that it's an allied detachment, one allied detachment, and graphically and in the wording of it. That, I guess, that's if I was going to be rule stickler, I would read that rule and I would say it's one, and rule that it's one. And if someone were complaining otherwise, I don't think there's a lot of ground to stand on. But again, I would love to see the army in the table, and I would have no problems playing against it and throwing down my word bearers against it. So,
and to use GW's own modes of play, they have matched play, narrative play, and open play. And in open play, where you're the freest to do whatever kind of narrative scenarios you like, this would already be allowed.
Yeah, and for the most part, though, you're not going to run into that many allies that can take so few units that you're going to be able to fit that many in there, unless you're looking at that one Mechanicum that can just be A Troop and NHQ, which is Scutari, Titan Guards. That's probably the smallest allies you can take. Otherwise, you're going to be looking at 500-600 points per allied detachment, and that's going to take up a quarter to a third of your points anyway.
Well, no,
But I
because
think
the
I agree
allied
with
detachment is literally one troop and one HQ, and all is your compulsory in all cases, right? Everything is optional other than that. So you can take a Delegatus and a recon squad as an allied attachment.
Well, they have support squad, but I get what you're saying.
Or,
You can take a cheap squad and a DP guy.
Yeah.
Probably 200-300 points. I agree, but I think you're right. It says an optional allied detachment. That is singular in every. But about your thing with the Lord of War, I think you actually might be right. There's nothing that says the Lord of War must be your faction. And it actually talks about your faction right here. It says all models in a single detachment must be of the same faction, and all models in the army must be of the same allegiance. But the Lord of War is a separate detachment, so I don't think it has to be your faction.
So if we take it that it is 1, 1, and 1, and we go down to the ally reading, it says any force org chart which includes more than just the primary detachment may be composed of units of 2 or more of the factions that make up the various armies. So the or more would only be if it was one, if it is only one, right? And we're making that assumption, then the only way you can get or more is if it's 1, 1, and 1, and all 3 are different factions.
Yeah. And this would also replace the Panoply of War that they used to have, which was like the coolest way to take Lords of War. It means you could take like a Baneblade in your Legion army, or you could bring like a Marauder Bomber for your Legion army.
I had 3 Avenger Strike Fighters.
Right. This would replace that effectively.
Yep.
Well, that was,
yep.
I mean, that
the
was
old
how you
Panoply
brought-
of War, and how you got Knights with Space Marines.
That's how you brought Knights with Space Marines. That's what I was just going to say. Yeah.
I actually think that Panoply of War was one of the coolest things that we lost.
Yep.
That was like the best way that they had ever. I can't really think of an instance where it was broken, because all the stuff they let you take was kind of trash. It was cool, but it was kind of trash. I guess the suborbital wing was.
So I have a question. You all keep saying that you can take a Lord of War as a optional in an ally, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what?
Not in an allied, but you could take an optional Lord of War and an optional ally.
Okay.
But it looks like you could take like your primary as Ultramarines and your optional Lord of War as Auxilia and your optional allied as well. That's how it looks to me.
I think you're right.
Now the Knight thing is still you can't take a Knight as Lord of War, because the way the Knight list works, you got the
Armature
tax, right?
I don't know. So
that raises a whole different question there, doesn't it?
yeah, that I wasn't going to talk about the Knight or the Titan because they have their own things, but I have no idea.
And
But you could
perhaps
take an allied detachment of a knight, yes or no? No, because it's still a Lord of
No
War.
HQs.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
perhaps this might be a good spot to remind our listeners, if you're uncertain, contact your event organizer before registering. And maybe also, given how long we've been at it and the fact that we have more questions than answers, do a little research, come back and talk about wrapping up the episode.
Well, before we wrap up, I still want to hear Lucas talk about the event that they just did.
How dare
I'll-
you?
I'll make it brief. So we did an event yesterday. I actually didn't run it. I think John said I did earlier. It wasn't me. It was one of our buddies, Will Frank. He's a pretty cool dude here in North Texas. He put it together for us, and he kind of stole some ideas, I think, from some Swedes about running an event where every army had to bring an NPC character that represented a remembrance. And the way that you completed your tertiary objective was the remembrancer had to watch your army, whether it was shoot dudes off the table or win close combats or win challenges or whatever. Your remembrancer had to witness these actions, and you would get points based on that. And he had I think if you killed a unit in shooting, you got a point. If you killed a unit in close combat, you got 2 points. And if you killed a unit in a challenge, you got 3 points. But you were limited to a total of 5 points.
Could the Remembrancer be killed?
No, he could not. It was not worth their trouble. So he could be blocked. You could drive a tank in front of him, but he couldn't be directly killed. They did lose a couple remembrancers from exploding vehicles, but he wasn't you couldn't attach him to a unit. He wasn't an independent character. He was literally just a guy running around by himself. So we had some feedback for him for if he wants to do a version 2 of that kind of stuff. But I think that no matter how tough you make him, people are going to shoot at him and kill him if you let him be killed. So I don't know if that, but I thought it was pretty fun overall. I thought it was a cool add-on, but we were running regular missions alongside it. So it was basically just adding a tertiary objective that both players could complete. The only complaint that I really had about it was every single one of my games, my opponent and I both maxed our points. So it effectively, we both got 5
So it's like a
points in
wash.
every
Basically,
game.
it's like a wash. So
Yeah, so it didn't really matter. But it was really fun, to have the remembrancers there, and it was cool to see everybody's little empties that they used. And then, I tried to engage my remembrancer in a rap battle with another one, and that it was quite a good time. So it was only 2 rounds. That's usually how we do our store events because the store isn't open late. So in the first game, I played my Dark Angels list, my Deathwing themed list with my double Spartans, double Land Raiders, and a bunch of Terminators. And I actually played against another Dark Angels with the Lion, and the Lion swept 1,000 points of my army. So I lost that one pretty bad. And then I played Iron Hands list with a Fellblade, and that was pretty fun. Corswain actually stabbed a Fellblade. So
That just sounds like fun.
yeah, it was really cool.
I love the ad of bring an NPC remembrancer rule. I had seen some, and I think that's a brilliant idea for a neat little hobby modeling take along and just core concepts.
We had I brought a tray of MPs that we had painted up for some of the stuff, so people could, if they didn't have one themselves, they could just use one that we had already. But only one player wasn't able to bring something fully painted for it, so that was pretty cool. Some of them weren't super representative of a remembrancer. Some guy brought a little squat, Necromunda squat guy that had guns and stuff, and I was like, well, not really a remembrancer, but it's really just the theme. It's not that big. He's just a token.
You know what he could?
My old Gene Stealer cult guy with the microphone. That'd be
yeah, something like that. So, like I said, we're not mad at it. I'm just saying, but pretty much everybody tried to kind of make something that fit. Because we've tried to do stuff like that in the past before. We have to bring this almost tertiary stuff, and it causes complaints with people when they have to buy and build and paint something that isn't part of their army. Everybody says they want to do it, but then when it comes time to actually nut up and do it, they don't.
On the wine ladder.
Right. So, but we had a pretty good turnout, and it was a lot of fun. I think the rules needs a little bit of tuning.
Give the Remembrancer polymorphine.
Ooh.
Oh.
I wanted to make it to where the Remembrancer could not be attacked by the enemy army, but the two Remembrancers could.
Good fight.
Yeah.
Stab
Ooh.
each other with a quill.
Like I said,
Last
I
fight.
personally advocated for a rap battle
Oh, that's even worse.
where they had to they had to fight, but using their leadership, and whoever wins gets to take points away from the other guy. The scathing insults about his mother. I
That's
thought that would be.
Little
That's just
cyber
hateful.
cherubs with the giant rolls of parchment or whatever.
I think we've devolved back to the point where Jacob's outro.
Yeah. But anyways, the event was really cool. I can post the rules for it if you want. If somebody wants to take a look at them, and then they can use them for whatever they want.
I want to see your remembrancer.
Yeah, post them up in the Facebook group.
I'll post the model I use. Sounds good.
Yeah, that was the sad part about me missing it. Is I have, as I've talked before, many different NPCs that I've painted up for this. I was looking forward to playing it with Will in this event. It's sad that I missed it.
Let me guess, it was a Televiper? No.
I do have some of those as well. Yes.
Well, I think at this point, gentlemen,
Yeah.
it's been a nice long ep, and we've had a good, nice discussion of pretty much everything that's come out in the
It's
past
been
3 weeks.
So nice to catch up with everyone. We've had some big developments, and I, for one, am really excited for this game. And
You sound like you have a lot more. You're in a better place than you were even a week ago. So
yeah, I don't know that I was this excited until I saw that FAQ. The Ifrit squad helped, and I think for me personally, the 1-2 punch of seeing the Ifrit squad and even the Adherent squad, obviously seeing someone who's so excited to put a unit on the table didn't exist before. Sometimes that enthusiastic. So the definite 1-2 punch, new unit, real clarity out of the FAQ again. Are they perfect? No, but the fact that we're seeing
concrete steps,
deliberate, explicit commitment to specific understandings of wordings, really puts a little pep back in my step. And it's I'll also say it's a little nice to know exactly what's going on with the Indie GT and to have had a fallback plan in place. So otherwise, I have been Jacob, and this episode I've been joined by
Dan,
Duncan,
Jack?
John.
Jamie,
Lucas.
and we're glad to have had you with us. Remember, stay accountable to your hobby and to your buddies, and we'll see you next time.